The classroom went silent as Jamal stood at his desk, clutching a worn book in his small hands. His knees trembled, his palms sweaty, but he forced himself to take a breath. Today, he was determined to prove he could do it. The teacher folded her arms, tapping her foot impatiently, her eyes narrowing like a predator circling its prey. "Go on then," she said with a smirk. "Show us what you've got." Jamal opened his mouth, but the words stuck in his throat. His voice cracked, stumbling over the syllables, each word like a hurdle he couldn't quite clear. A ripple of laughter spread through the classroom. The teacher tilted her head, lips curling into a smug smile. "Maybe reading just isn't for you," she mocked loudly, her voice sharp enough to slice through his spirit. The class erupted, laughter bouncing off the walls, drowning him in humiliation. Jamal's face burned, his chest tight, tears threatening to escape, but he swallowed them back, refusing to give her the satisfaction. He sat down quietly, gripping his notebook so hard his knuckles turned white. That night at home, Jamal sat hunched over the kitchen table, the memory of the classroom replaying his mind like a cruel loop. His grandmother walked in, her steps slow but steady, her presence filling the room with warmth. She placed a hand on his shoulder and looked into his eyes with a mixture of love and firmness. "Baby," she whispered, "they only laugh when they fear your light. Don't let them put it out." Her words cut deeper than the teacher's cruelty, but in a way that healed instead of hurt. Jamal nodded, wiping his eyes. In his notebook, he began to write, line after line, word after word. He poured his pain, his anger, and his hope into a poem. It wasn't just writing. It was his voice taking shape, finally unafraid. The very next day, fate shifted. His English teacher, not the one who mocked him but another, had submitted student work for a national broadcast celebrating young voices. Out of hundreds, Jamal's poem was chosen. He didn't even know until the announcement came. Jamal Green. The principal said in assembly, reading from a paper, "Your poem has been selected to be read live on national television tomorrow." The gymnasium buzzed, whispers shooting through the crowd. Jamal's heart stopped. He could barely process it. The same boy who was mocked yesterday was now chosen to speak before millions. That evening, he sat with his grandmother, fear creeping back in. "What if I mess up? What if they laugh again?" he asked. His grandmother shook her head, pulling him close. "No, baby. This time, the world will listen." The next day, bright lights beamed down on him in the television studio. Cameras pointed, microphones waited. His legs trembled, but he remembered his grandmother's words. He unfolded his notebook and began to read. His voice was steady now, each word strong, rising like a tide that no one could hold back. His poem spoke of struggle, of shame, of finding strength when the world tells you you're weak. Millions watched, many with tears in their eyes, as Jamal's voice cut to the silence of living rooms across the country. Across town, that same teacher sat frozen in her chair, eyes glued to the screen. The smug smile she wore so easily was gone, replaced with disbelief and something darker, regret. She had tried to crush him, but instead she had witnessed his rise. The following morning, the school hallways were different. Students crowded around their phones, playing clips of Jamal's performance. The same kids who had laughed at him now stared in awe. When Jamal walked in, the whispers followed him, not mocking, but amazed. Heads turned, respect blooming where ridicule once lived. At the front of the classroom, the teacher's voice was tighter, her posture rigid. She tried to carry on the lesson as if nothing had changed, but the students no longer looked at her the same way. Her authority had cracked. She had humiliated Jamal to make herself feel powerful, but now her power was slipping away. Later that day, the principal called Jamal into his office. His heart pounded as he sat down, expecting punishment. But instead, the principal leaned forward, his tone softer. "Jamal, your words brought honor to this school. You'll represent us at the state conference." For a moment, Jamal couldn't speak. Everything the teacher said he couldn't be, he had just become. That evening, his grandmother watched the broadcast replay again, tears in her eyes. She hugged Jamal tightly, whispering, "Baby, the world tried to laugh at you, but now they're listening. By the end of the week, Jamal's name was everywhere, on interviews in newspapers, even replayed on the radio. The school district took notice. Parents began calling, demanding answers. How could a student celebrated across the nation have been mocked and humiliated by a teacher in his own classroom? The spotlight turned hot, and it landed squarely on her. At a 10-school board meeting, the teacher tried to defend herself. "It was just a joke," she said, her voice cracking. But parents weren't laughing. "A joke that almost crushed a child's spirit," one mother snapped. The decision was swift. Disciplinary action, her reputation shattered, her smugness gone. She left the room in silence, her power stripped away. Meanwhile, Jamal stood before thousands at the state conference, his grandmother beaming in the front row. This time, his voice didn't tremble. It commanded the room. His words were no longer about pain alone. They were about triumph, resilience, and the courage to rise. The crowd erupted into a standing ovation, the sound crashing like waves. In that moment, Jamal understood something deeper. His teacher's cruelty was never about his weakness. It was about her fear of his strength. She tried to silence him because his voice carried power. And now, that voice had reached further than she ever imagined. When Jamal returned to school, he didn't strut with arrogance, and he didn't seek revenge. Instead, he walked with quiet dignity, knowing that true justice wasn't about humiliating her back. Justice was about rising so high that her cruelty no longer had any hold over him. He had proven not just her wrong, but himself right. And the lesson was clear. When they doubt your voice, speak louder. Because sometimes, the people who try to silence you are the ones most afraid of your truth. And when you speak anyway, you don't just change your story, you might just change the world. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that matter. And let's keep the conversation going.